60 or 70% of golfers play with back pain. They just play through back. It's astronomical of how much people will just play. And what I'm finding is there's a lot more components to why pain is there. It could be a skill. It could be lack of range. It could be the inability to just not have the tolerance, like the people that feel good first 9 holes and then the back 9 they fall apart. Or they're inefficient, which means that the first 9 holes they're not very good, and the back 9 they come together because they develop some type of compensation pattern to pull their swing together. So my job is to basically try to figure out where they can't move and develop a better tolerance program so they can last longer in the course and play 3, 4, 5 days in a row.
Welcome to the Exercise is Health podcast, where we're talking about exercise, health, and the interconnectedness of the two. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we will be coming to you every single week from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Exercise is Health podcast. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we're coming to you from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg in Schaumburg, Illinois. Now, at Muscle Activation Schaumburg, we believe your health is your most valuable asset. Your health is one of the biggest influencers of the quality and quantity of time that you have. And while there are many aspects of health, our expertise is exercise. Exercise has been proven time and again to not only improve your health, but also increase your longevity and improve your quality of life. And today, we have an awesome guest for you, none other than Scott McWilliam. Scott McWilliam is the founder of MATchanics and the co-founder of Lateral Fitness. He has been involved in the fitness industry since 2004 and has been involved in sports and exercise his entire life. Scott has been fascinated with the mechanics of golf for over a decade. He has been developing his own golf game with the help from multiple different pros, but it all resulted in the same painful swing. He understood what he needed to do, but he couldn't get his body to perform. He spent many hours working on different drills prescribed by the pros to quote-unquote fix the problem, but with no success. He always thought it was a mechanical problem, but he didn't know what to do. Each round he could feel his back throbbing and tightness in his shoulder and neck. He hung up his clubs and decided golf wasn't for him. Everything changed the day he found the Titleist Performance Institute certification. TPI broke down the golf swing in ways Scott could understand the shortcomings of his mechanics, which re-energized his passion for golf. After finding his limitation with the TPI screen, he dove in deeper with the help of the TPI Level 2 medical professional, and as a mastery level MAT practitioner himself, he was able to target the areas which was causing this pain when golfing. Scott, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to our show.
Thanks, guys.
At this time of recording, Scott and I are in the same RX class, so
yes.
He probably by the time this airs, he will be RX, full body, completed.
Depending on when this goes out and depending on what happens with the schedule of classes, but you all will be right there, which will be awesome.
Yay!
I'm going to have to update my bio because this whole RX process has changed so many pieces to what initially I dove into.
Yeah. So tell us more about how you got, we learned about how you got into golf, but tell us more about kind of your background, how you got into fitness to begin with, and then where that's taken you from there.
It's quite interesting. I have a food service and restaurant management degree. So cooking is my big passion. Deconstructing food, being able to create new meals, seeing things on TV, you can just kind of create your own little spins on it. I was going to culinary school, but then just realized the in-depth of this school that I'd have to actually be, how involved I had to be in. I went through the walkthrough, the open house, and I would see kids literally sleeping in the hallways, sleeping in desks. I found at least 10 bodies just sleeping because they were so tired.
Wow.
And we'll just say it wasn't for me. So I decided to go, this isn't for me. What was ironic during the time was I was actually working out with this guy in my home gym, and I was actually getting a bodybuilding. So I prepared for a show, won the lightweight division, which was pretty cool. And then my mom came to me one day and was like, "You need a job. You have to work. You can't live on my couch anymore, or you can't stay in our house. You need to find something that you're passionate about." And she asked me, "What are the 2 things you're passionate about?" I said, "Well, cooking." Well, that's out. I said, I have to go to the gym every day. So as mothers do passive aggressively, she sends me articles on how to be a personal trainer. And I couldn't read a book. I didn't want to go to a book. So I found a school called National Personal Training Institution. And I actually went to Orlando, Florida, to their in-house program for about 4 months.
Nice.
It's a year program, an accelerated program I went through. And then dove in, started training, started FFC Fitness Forum on the Gold Coast, where Mr. Charlie Cates and I met and worked several years together.
Yeah.
And then started diving more and more into fitness. I got massage certified, thinking that was going to help with my clients. But what actually dove me deeper into the MAT world was repeatability. I found when I got massages, I can make people feel better. I mean, I spent years learning how to do, deep massage, deep tissue was the way to go at the time to create mobility. But the problem was, and it was more personal experiences, I'd get worked on and I feel better. But then once I started adding some type of force or some type of exercise, I'd tighten up again. So I found, along with some help from other people at Fitness Formula, guided me toward 2 certifications, muscle activation technique as well as resistance training specialist, which those 2 obviously work hand in hand quite well together.
Sure.
And just dove in, start learning that range of motion assessing is a huge component to function, and learning and since I was a really, really bad stretcher, I hated stretching. I was just bad at it. You're good at it or bad at it.
Mm-hmm.
So I leaned on the side that I was really bad at it, so I didn't do it. But when I started learning the principles of muscle activation technique, tightness is secondary to weakness, applying a lot more isometrics, and then going through actual treatment, changed my life. So that changed my whole exercise world. And then I spent 10 years as a trainer, just training, and then decided when I co-founded Lateral Fitness, I had to make a change and dove strictly into helping people help people perform better by muscle activation technique. So I became a specialist, solely a professional specialist. And then that's how it just kept morphing and changing. And then I opened up Golf MATchanics, which is up the North Shore of Chicago. And I found out that all my clients golf. And when you guys, as you guys know very well, when you're starting your own business, you have to brand yourself. And I was trying to brand myself as the pain guy up north, but it's been done. It's done so many times over and over again. We'll come in, we're going to make your pain go away, then we're going to exercise. So once I found out that the world of being able to create a better niche of golf, I started diving more and more in the certifications. TPI certification was a great way to open my eyes. Got through level 2 medical TPI. Got past the level 2 fitness for TPI, then went and got strength and conditioning certified. So I'm a strength and conditioning coach now.
Nice.
Because there's 2 ends of the spectrum. If you can move, it's great. If you can generate a contraction, it's great, but you got to be able to tolerance. So now I'm back in the world of balancing between moving and contracting a lot and a lot more, which we've learned, Julie and I, as well as you, are learning very in-depthly in the RX process, that the more contraction, the better you handle, but the more contraction also breaks you down. So it's a happy medium between the 2. So I've just geared it purely toward golf and how I can improve tolerance and keep them on the course. There's some number, like 60 or 70% of golfers play with back pain. They just play through back. It's astronomical of how much people will just play. And what I'm finding is there's a lot more components to why pain is there. It could be a skill. It could be lack of range. It could be the inability to just not have the tolerance, like the people that feel good first 9 holes and then the back 9 they fall apart. Or they're inefficient, which means that the first 9 holes they're not very good, and the back 9 they come together because they develop some type of compensation pattern to pull their swing together. So my job is to basically try to figure out where they can't move and develop a better tolerance program so they can last longer in the course and play 3, 4, 5 days in a row. Because we know in Chicago, how does that work? You have maybe a string of good days.
Exactly.
And then you cancel work and play golf as much as you can because the following week could be too hot, too cold, rainy, and all the above. So the tolerance is always the big issue that I deal with over and over again during the summer days of Chicago.
That's awesome, Scott. I think you have such a cool background because not a lot of MAT specialists themselves have gone through the massage educational system. So that's really cool that you have that perspective as well. What do you find that MAT brings to the table when working with your golf clients the most? What kind of benefits is MAT bringing to them, or changes is MAT bringing to them when you're using your MAT principles?
It's interesting you ask that. From the massage world, I don't know how many people would let me dig in their stomach. Like if I said, okay, we're going to do abdominal massage as well, working. I mean, we didn't even know what the psoas minor and it was all the iliopsoas. It was all one muscle in our eyes in the massage world. Being able to decipher what they've been doing, that's what MAT allows. If they've been golfing a lot. So a good example, a lot of golfers that I actually, when they come in contact with me, their pelvis is usually pretty out of whack. So you might see like a stacking issue, like your pelvis here, and then your trunk deviate a little bit in either direction. Or you might even see posterior tilt in their pelvis. So they're actually tucked at standing and then tucked at when they're supine, which is where we assess everyone in MAT. Or the weird one, which I see, is like a counter nutation. I see one side tilted and the other side actually tucked. And the tucked side is usually on their trail hip, which is where the majority of the power you're actually getting when you're swinging. So when I see this with the MAT, the ability of using MAT, I can see exactly which areas we're going to start in. If their pelvis is in a pretty good position, I might not be driving in a lot of pelvis. I might not be starting in rotation, flexion. Hip flexion is always questionable, but you might be moving up in the more side bend, more thoracic, more shoulder. Shoulder dysfunction might be the area you might move into. But if that pelvis is out of whack, you can test it and see if they can actually turn efficiently, which you usually see a range of motion description, usually on the side that's actually not tucked. Because the side that's tucked is moving correctly because the facets on the other side are actually turning efficiently. The side that it isn't tucked, they don't move efficiently because those facets are kind of jammed or stuck open. So you can start unpacking the pelvis right away and getting them. The quickest way back in the golf is, since back pain seems to be the number one cause of eliminating people's ability to play golf efficiently as well as consistently, you correct the pelvis dysfunction underneath as well as a trunk dysfunction. Man, they can go out and swing. They can swing all day. It seems to eliminate shoulder dysfunction. Seems to eliminate like the possible of hip problems or like hip impinging or knee problems. I mean, just correcting that, start diving through that pelvis and trunk relationship, man. And if it wasn't for MAT, it wouldn't be happening. I would just be pain shooting, looking for pain, looking for where you're in pain versus where the actual range dysfunction is.
That's really interesting. And then, so one thing that I really liked about your story is how it sounds like things have kind of come full circle in a sense, where it started off, training, and then you got into kind of breaking things down into the individual component parts with MAT and kind of building up the tolerance through, exercise with, RTS principles. And then you kind of dive into the TPI assessment and the TPI world and whatnot. What do you feel like that has added to your skill set and to how you go about assessing clients and viewing how clients move?
That's really cool. I know you and I've spoke about this, but it's the other side of the world. MAT lives in the world in isolated control. Can you turn left? Can you turn right? Can you flex in a rotated position? So we get really biased into one position. RX allows us to use both sides, which working on bilaterally is friggin' amazing because it fixed up quickly. RTS only cares about the contraction. How fast can you do a contraction? TPI, a little background on TPI, as well as the strength and conditioning specialist, as a strength coach, they live in this world as well. Well, it's movement patterns. All they care about is movement patterns. Can you? It's the world of to get better at golfing, you have to be able to golf, and you have to be able to move. They'll break down things segmentally, but they're talking about, okay, as I turn my hips, is my upper body able to turn the other direction? If I'm opening my hips up down toward the target line, am I able to spin on my fixed hip, but all of it moves together? Because this is more of a whole Gary Gray functional FMS, functional movement screen. This is the world that TPI lives in. And it's a good term that Tom Purvis would say was locally versus globally. And now globally means, in my eyes, how does everything work together? Can you sequence? Can you differentiate? Can your pelvis spin inversely under the thoracic, which is going to allow you to create more potential energy, which will create more kinetic energy in your swing? Can you tuck your pelvis at the right time? And can you tuck your pelvis at the right time? Can you extend your hips at the right time? Which is the sequencing component of it all. So that's what TPI brings. It's all the motor control and the motor patterns and the posterior chain and the anterior chain of what all the rest of the world lives in, and being able to have that conversation versus being so biased to one side. You have to be able to apply both so you can actually talk about the other 99% of the world, because the MAT world and RTS world only talks to the 1%ers.
Sure.
So we have to be more open to all these other certifications to actually see where it fits, to actually have the conversation with the golf pros, have the conversation with the fitness professionals. Because if you don't have that, I mean, we live in a circle. We live in a bubble, and no one ever is going to get out. So that's honestly what TPA's brought, is opening my eyes a lot and being able to know that, dude, just because you can flex your hip, that doesn't mean crap. Because I would get myself moving pretty well through my MAT treatments because Charlie, you work on me. So I'd move pretty well. I mean, I could turn, I can do all this stuff, but then I had to go build the skill of being able to disassociate my pelvis, being able to flex my pelvis, being able to flex my pelvis in a trunk flex position, being able to do all these pieces, which RX, fortunately draws out very strongly on me. But if you can add the pieces, you're going to be overall better and help a lot more people versus being so stuck in a box of, I'm the mobility guy, I'm the stability guy. Dude, you're the most stability guy. You do both. You create mobility and stability with some sequencing and disassociation in there based on the goal of what the individual is trying to do.
No, that definitely makes sense. So it sounds to me it's kind of giving you the perspective of kind of the microscope versus the telescope, where you're able to kind of zoom in on the individual components, and then you're able to zoom out and you're able to say, okay, well, how do these components fit together, and how does affecting this one component affect everything else, and what needs to change now?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at my company, we use all kinds of tools. Like we use the infamous massage table to see where you move. We use a TPI screen, which you're going to be standing against gravity to see how you can you disassociate, because that's more of the world you're going to live in. Which is, I can see the bias why people only look at people when you're standing, because that's where we live. We don't lie on the ground and walk. We have to stand against gravity. But something I've been playing with a lot lately as well is I've actually got a K-Vest, which is friggin' really cool tool. It's an audio feedback tool.
Yeah, tell us more about that, kind of for our listeners, because I know before you and I spoke, I was really unfamiliar with what a K-vest was. So kind of tell us what it is at a basic level, and then describe to us more about how you use it.
So a K-vest is based. They use it actually. What you see a lot of it is for golf pros use it because they have different programs you can buy. And the one I bought, of course, I bought the big one. I bought all of it because I enjoy just handing my credit card over to people to spend money. But what it is it's basically, it allows you, the big thing they use in the golf in the K-vest is it's called the kinematic sequence. So for golfers, when you swing, it enables to see which sections of your bodies are moving first, which ones are unloading first, which ones are second, which ones are third, which ones are fourth. You have 4 sensors. You have one on your pelvis, sacrum-ish, and then you have one in the upper back, in between your shoulder blades, or just below you put it right below your C7. You put one on your upper arm, and then you put one on on the upper forearm. So when you swing, this audio feedback is going to show you which sections of your bodies are moving first. And then it can break. That's how the golf pros use it. I don't use it like that other than my own personal. I'll use it for my clients to kind of see how they swing. Because if their sequencing is way off, I can do 2 things. I can go, well, you are your pelvis is out of whack. So let's start there to see if just unwinding your pelvis can create a better sequencing. Or do you need a golf pro? Because this is the world that I refuse to. I don't give golf advice. We talk golf. I understand the swings. I spend a lot of time studying the swing just to see where mechanics are and how the muscle function, a vital role these motions happen. But I don't give golf advice. I want to know where your body isn't moving, provide exercises, provide tolerance for it, so then you can do it. So I've had clients that we've done just unpacking their pelvis, all of a sudden like, holy crap, my sequence has changed. Yeah, so I can use it for that. There's also since K-vest is embedded with TPI, Tyler Performance Institution, as well as FMS, functional movement screen, you can just use the upper back sensor as well as the pelvis sensor and go through a section of the TPI screen. So now what's interesting about MAT, falling back on MAT, is something that we always say is, can you feel that? Can you feel that? Do you feel that? Do you feel this? Do you feel that? Can you feel you not moving far to the left? And if you aren't very kinematic, I mean, if you don't have a very, very strong body awareness, you're going to go, which unfortunately 99% of our clients go, no, I don't feel that. Do you feel the change? No. Then you're like, all right, then what the heck are we doing? I mean, it's frustration. But the cool thing is I have a setup in my office. I have a 50-inch screen TV that I can hook the K-vest to and use these 2 sensors to see, all right, you're going to see in real time, can you move? Can you move your thoracic in a seated position? And now what's the cool thing about it is you can click and put all the numbers on because it has flexion, side bend, and rotation numbers on it. So as you turn the thoracic, you can see how much the pelvis is moving. So you might get, there's a certain degree that might happen, like if under a couple of degrees, not worry about it as much. But what opened my eyes about MAT, but the MAT world is everything's isolated. We're trying to eliminate it as much as possible to have them actively turn. But if you have them actively turn, you can see the thoracic, the trunk move 20 degrees, 30 degrees. Normal is 45 roughly. So say they move 30 degrees, but their pelvis is moving 10. So they're actually turning 40 degrees. But they can't fix their pelvis to turn the thoracic on the pelvis, and they can visually see that. They can see that they can't. You see how your pelvis is moving? Yeah, don't do it. So now they can do 2 things: feed the information to the pelvis. So, okay, can I actually control that? You can turn that into an exercise for them. Just more of motor control and sequencing to see if they can do it. Or You get them on the table and start trying to improve the rotation pattern through the RX process to see if they're and see if you make a change. Sometimes you do. Sometimes they just really have crappy body awareness. So just through exercise, they can start getting better and better. But the clients that aren't turning well, you can see it. I mean, the trunk flexion is huge. You can do it with trunk flexion. You can do it with side bend. You can do it with can't really do it with hip flexion because I don't have I'm trying to figure out a way, but it's getting messed up a lot because the sensors are very sensitive. You can do shoulder motion. You can attach it to put the sensor to your head to see cervical rotation. I mean, you can do all kinds of pieces to it. I would love to have one for every part of the body, but they don't have that yet. But no, I think it defeats the entire purpose of it. But that's what's cool about it is you can actually really have the client visually be. So now you're tapping into another sensory response.
Yeah.
You're at the kinesthetic response. Feel it. Now can they visually see it? So now you're trying to connect the two because that's what the KBS does. It uses, but it adds a component of auditory as well. So when you turn some drills that you do, you might work on your takeaway, and then you can see where you're moving. Still have certain ranges, and you can alter the range based off the individual's ability, and then it will ding. So you can hit a certain range, and then it'll ding for you. So then you're in the position you need to get to. So it's actually tapping into all three senses: auditory, visual, and kinesthetic.
Yeah. Which
MAT only moves in the kinesthetic component of it all. Sure. Unless you have mirrors all over the place, and they can tap into the other one.
Sure.
So
very
with
interesting.
the KFS, you're able to use multiple, at least two of the for a chunk of them, not all of them, but for a chunk of them, to have them start at least learning what you need to do, or what you're trying to do, versus saying, "Can you feel that? Can you feel that? Can you feel that? Can you feel that? Can you feel that?" Which is a line that we get highly repetitive on saying and hearing the word no.
Scott, you bring up such a good point. I think us as MAT specialists, we have such a different, clearly a different view on a client's body where we kind of know, okay, they're not that good at right trunk rotation and, they don't know how to coordinate, this motion, but that's because we're thinking in our brains. But I think you bring up such a good point. But I do have a question for you. And I feel like I have a good picture of this, which makes me think that some clarity for our listeners would probably be helpful, only because I'm in the field. But I do think you're right where what's been done many, many times is, I help these kind of people with pain. I help golfers with pain, or I help exercisers with pain. That's been done so many times. And all three of us know that we don't really treat pain, but we do know that when people aren't moving well, they usually aren't feeling that well. And those two really highly correlate. And then you brought up an interesting topic that I've never thought of, where people, number one, people that golf, most people have back pain. And you mentioned that back pain could really come from many sources, meaning it could be, a lack of contraction thing. It could be, they need to learn how to compensate. They need to, their skills, you listed a whole bunch of different things. But what would the role be that you play and you serve people with versus a golf pro? Because I'm assuming that if someone's into golf and they're listening to this podcast, they probably, when we say, go work with a golf pro, there's some picture that comes in their head of like what that might be like. But what is it that you do that's different than the golf pro? Or what are the little areas that you can fill in or supplement that you wouldn't do with a golf pro, given your background, given your thorough MAT scope, given your technology, your TPI certification, etc.?
Well, it's a really good question, because this actually, I talk to my clients a lot about it, but it doesn't help me talking to my clients because it's talking to the golf pros, which are the most world, is the thing that golf pros feel is we're assets. We are assets to them, because seems to be the process for your typical golfer. Okay, so I start young. If you start young, other than like Charlie and I, we're starting in our 30s to learn. We're going to learn how to golf because it's just like, I'm going to deadlift 400 pounds because I'm a man and I can do it. Like that's kind of how we think. So let's take a golfer who's picked up golf, who hasn't been golfing their entire life, because they're completely different, because they have a lot more awareness, because they fed their body the information at a younger age. Now, take Charlie and I, who started golfing in our 30s. The normal procedure is buy clubs. Buy the most expensive club and the coolest outfits you can, because at least if you play bad, you look good on the course. Second thing is our view is get a golf pro, because a golf pro can fix everything. And it's interesting. I did that role. I went and I started golf pros. I went through 4 in a summer because my argument was, I want you to talk to me mechanically. Mm-hmm. They talk about, can you feel that? Can you feel that? Can you feel that? The same problem that we do as mat practitioners. Can you feel that? Can you feel that? That looked great. I don't think it was great because I couldn't feel what I was supposed to do. I think I just happened to get the club at the right spot at the right time. Mm. And then when you go practice on your own, you can't do it. Mm-hmm. Now, what I'm noticing is, for a golf pro, is, as well as being an asset, if your body can't move, their job sucks. I mean, you're trying to ask your body to achieve specific positions, while creating specific motion, while accelerating the nervous system and decelerating. So basically, the idea is, how fast can you slow down? That's what I think about when I think about a golf swing. How well are your pieces working to be able to generate a crap load of contraction, but also slow down, which creates the injury. The injury is not where the problem in golf is not the acceleration component. What hurts the golfers is the deceleration component. That's what hurts, honestly, all our clients, is decelerating. When did you hurt yourself? When I put the box down or when I bent over. You're decelerating your body against gravity. So that's where we can play a huge part in golf pros, is we fix the pieces. We get your pelvis moving. We get your pelvis, there's supposed to be like a 10-degree anterior tilt in your pelvis. You get them closer to more of a norm. Granted, there's no major osteophytes or spurs in the lower back or whatever you can get, if it hasn't calcified or created some type of, stenosis in the lower back, you get the best they can. Then they go to the golf pro and say, all right, I've been working with this mat practitioner for all this time. I have a crap load of body awareness. Let's work on the skill. Because I wish I made this schematic a while ago that there's 4 components. There is the medical, first one, then overlapping that is the fitness, and over that, actually there's 3 components, and then over that is the skill. The golf pros live in the skill. You can build motor patterns, you can build sequencing all you want in the skill. And people that are friggin' just like, they have a high level, they were an athlete growing up, they have very low injury, they have a very low injury report. They are able to do all this stuff because, you take those people that just went out and started golfing. I have a client who is a pro tennis player. I decided to pick up golf, and he friggin' did awesome at it. And I'm like, you suck. But that's the point, is like, we're a team. We're a huge team with these golf pros. If we can, you can teach them. We will not teach. I will discuss components. I will discuss sequencing. I will discuss stuff that has to happen in the golf swing because I've learned it. Your job is to take it in real time with your film or whatever you're doing, or being able to break down what things are supposed to happen at specific times. I don't know that. I mean, I'm learning it for my own personal game, but I'm not going to sit and say, hey, you're early extending. Well, that's your job. That's not my job. My job is to get you so you your body can handle that early extension, because early extension means you're just, as you're swinging, you're moving your hips forward, which is creating hip extension and lumbar extension. So if you do that every single time in your golf swing, my job is to make sure you can at least handle that for 18 holes so you don't feel like crap when you're done.
Scott, you bring up so many good points. And as you were talking, I was thinking about two different examples. Number one, myself. Let's just say I've golfed, I don't know, less than 5 times in my life. But I've gotten MAT every week for the last 7 years. So we could probably say that my muscle system is very well tuned, meaning on a normal day, most muscles are working at a pretty high level. But that my skill level, when you kind of talked about the different categories, my skill level of golf is very, very, very low. And I remember every time I golf, what is so frustrating for me is that the skill is so low. Like I feel like I'm like that baby giraffe with like the wobbly knees, and like, you know, there's so many component parts to this skill that it's like, well, I know I have the pieces, but I can't put it together because I lack awareness for this skill. Like I don't know what I'm doing. So I was thinking about that. So that's a really good example of like having really poor skill, but having your muscles working really well. But then I was also thinking that I've been working with this client for the last probably year, and he's a golfer, a recreational golfer, but a golfer for, I don't know, 15 years, probably took a lesson with a very, very good pro for at least once a week, probably. So he has a lot of experience with the skill, but he wasn't introduced to MAT and training until about a year ago. So what's interesting about him is that his skill is very high, but the body awareness and the muscle function was quite low. And so what was interesting is, due to a back injury, he had to take a break from golf. He just did MAT and training. And when he went back to train with his pro, all those cues that his pro was giving him, he could do now. Like his body had the ability to, oh, I can rotate my hip now. You've been telling me this for a year, but I can do it now. Or I can get my shoulders in this angle and not that angle. Whereas that cue, it didn't make sense to my body and brain before. I couldn't make my body do it. So I appreciate you bringing up those points, because as you were talking, I was thinking of those two examples of like the extremes of, yes, I'm on the extreme of zero golf skill, but I can get someone's body to move better. But it's cool that you have the experience with your own journey to getting better at golf, so that you're able to relate and understand these pieces a bit more, even though you're not technically working on their skill, but you're working on their component parts and their movement patterns to help them be able to achieve a skill.
And it's interesting you say that, is because, let's take you for example. Say you were like, okay, I'm going to learn how to golf. You have the potential of becoming one of those clients, because everyone likes an easy client. I tell them what to do and they do it. I tell them to do their isometric homework and they do it. It makes us feel good. It's not about you. It makes us personally feel good about ourselves, because we think we're actually achieving, but it's the individual that's actually doing it. Now, the cool thing is when they say, all right, Julie, we're going to have you learn how to do this, which I tell you, no golf pro does. They go, swing, let's do this. In fact, I've yet to meet one that's extremely, which is our problem, is that when I'm always on the lookout for a good golf pro that's mechanical, because my brain works mechanically and we work mechanically. So when they say do this, you're like, but the cool thing is when they say, okay, Julie, I want you to do this with your hips, you go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's okay. Okay, now do this. Okay, and then you can start drawing out weaknesses, more weaknesses, which gives Charlie something to do. And then you can see, because like when Charlie and I worked, what was the big thing you noticed? Right side bend, always crapping out. Where was a lot of my pain? Right shoulder and neck, or the right side of my neck. A lot of pain. What do you do in the downswing? As you do like a modified squat to build ground reaction, and then you trend a small slide forward to drive your move forward, you're side bending on that left side, on that right side. Your trail side is side bending. So as you're side bending, that's where you're actually generating the power and moving into flexion. So all these pieces have to happen to make it work. And now that, we're on the regular schedule programming of getting treated, Charlie knows when I'm playing too much golf. Like, how are you feeling? I've been playing a lot of golf. Your flexion sucks. Yeah, it's not great. I've been hovered over a golf ball for, with this coronavirus for 30 days. I golf so I just sit and swing for 8 hours a day because that's what makes sense right now. And it's really cool because now it's just that's when you take your other side of your other client, where your client who is the lack of awareness. I mean, I spent a good year with a golf tech, and I took the winter off because I was building a clinic, getting stuff ready to go, and just didn't go. I went back to him, and I knew it, man. I knew he thought I was just going to completely just suck. Like, he's like, you took 3 months off. You're not going to be good. I came back better because the one thing I did do in the winter was I got treated. What I did do is work on sequencing, work on strengthening, work on all the pieces that are vital for my swing. And once I went to my lesson in the new year, he went, oh, well, and that's the thing though, like, your golf pro, if your body can do it, it's kind of like, and this is maybe bad to say this, but golf pros aren't needed every week. I mean, in the beginning, you're needed every week to kind of reinforce that movement pattern, reinforce what you need. But like once every month checkup, once every 3 weeks to a month, that's ideal because you're going to be able to see where your body's moving. And this is what's interesting about MAT and the RX process was, holy crap, every time I got treated, man, more range opened up. Man, my sequencing was so friggin' bad for the first year. So I tell my clients, I go, if you're going through this process, don't expect to be great at golf. Because what I'm seeing is range is opening up. You have to redo your swing sequencing, see a golf pro, discuss these positions that you can actually see, and then we got to work on the generating contraction out of the range and then into the range. So you have a higher tolerance, better initial output, which means you've stored a crap load of potential energy to release it into kinetic energy and then decelerate it. So for the first year when I was getting treated by Charlie, man, I was so angry because my swing was it was all over the place because I didn't have every time I'd go get treated, I'd have new awareness. And I think, okay, this is going to help my golf swing. And it didn't initially because I didn't know I didn't know where my body was in space. I mean, use the $3 word of proprioception, right? I didn't know where my body was in space. But as soon as I started exercising in that space, I started realizing, wow, okay, I can move here. And of course, we're biased. Use lightweight. Use light as hell. Use lightweight to go into those ranges. And just build the exercise through awareness. Don't try to get stronger in that range. Just build the awareness of being able to feel that. So as you can feel getting there, now you're sending the receptors to go, oh, I know where that is. I can acknowledge it underweight, which helps building a more of a sensory response, an awareness, and then you can go out and use it. So there's components of this, of being able to wear and being able to use it all, but it's a system. You have to peel away the problems, create motion, create range, then build and have stability on top of it, which MAT is the epitome of most stability, more range with stability. And then you're able to go to the golf pro to figure out the sequencing because, good God, man, the sequencing was so bad. But then you start learning how it works.
So, Scott, thanks so much for sharing all that with us. Now, is there anything that we haven't asked you that we should have asked you about your area of expertise?
No, I think the big thing is we've touched it is there's a differentiation. That's the biggest thing that people need to understand about what I do and what golf pros do and what fitness professionals do. Yes, there's people that are trying to generate better contraction, and it's true. And they're trying to move through full range, which is true. But the component part that as a mat specialist, RX, soon to be, hopefully graduate sooner or later, as long as we can go out there and take the class.
Yes.
Right. Fingers crossed. But the big thing is you have to have somebody taking care of your nervous system. And it's not about mobility. It's about stability. As you're moving your body in the golf swing, you are driving yourself into the end ranges. That's what you're doing. You're putting yourself into these end ranges. And people are, and the fitness world is talking about, we have to train those end ranges. True. You have to be able to train your end ranges. But the thing about that people have to understand is what I do and what you guys definitely can cross over and do as well is you have to be able to, one, get to the end range, two, be able to sustain the end range, and then three, generate a contraction out of the end range. Because in these shortened ranges, 99% of the exercises people just train mid-range. So they're great. As long as they're swinging mid-range, they're awesome. It's that one time they decide they go back. I am going to take it is 250. I am going to drive this ball 275, and you're going to go back as far as you can and generate as much contraction as you can. You've officially maxed out your trunk, maxed out your pelvis, maxed out hip motion, and now you're going to try potentially shoulder motion as well. And now you're going to try to generate a contraction out of that from a very, very shortened position. For the muscles that are in shortened to lengthen, they're going to be okay. They're the ones muscles that are in mid-range, they're going to be fine. But the muscles that are going to be in the very shortened position, and you got to come out of that, that's where we're vulnerable. And that's where we get our butts kicked. And not just golf, but all asymmetrical sports. You're one side. That's why who are the people that are least injured? Actually, you take those baseball players, which is asymmetrical sport, but the switch hitters. They can generate Dexter Fowler can hits 290, hits mid 200s, 275 right side. He hits mid 270, mid 200s left side. They aren't injured because they're asking the body. They're both sides can generate the same force. You may not have the same range, but you can generate relatively the same force. That's what we're measuring. That's the big thing we're looking at is range discrepancies are always going to be there. Where they can't move is something where we can assess and go, okay, cool. We have to keep track on that. If you have stenosis, we got to stay on top of extension and flexion really well. We got to make sure that pelvis is moving as well as we can so you don't get injured.
No, that definitely makes sense. Absolutely. So, Scott, first of all, thank you so much for sharing all of your expertise and your knowledge with us today, man. It's just really cool to understand how you're going about breaking down the golf swing and how you're going about helping people to play this sport and play this game that so many people really enjoy. So thank you for sharing that with us. Where can people find out more about you, find out more about your company, and how can people connect with you?
The best thing you can do right now is go to my website, www.golfmechanics.com. Click the contact. You can reach me there. I have 2 locations. One's actually downtown Chicago at 314 West Superior in Streeterville. The other one in Glenview, 1940 Lehigh Avenue, actually very close to the Glen Club. So that's where you can find me. We're in the process of setting up a YouTube video channel, which is called Golf MATchanics, Move Better to Play Better. That should be out shortly. And that's about it. Guys, thanks so much, man. This was a blast. It's fun to actually have all my conversations I've had with you personally, actually all in one all in a conversation.
Exactly. No, I love it, man. It was a total joy. So the question that we like wrapping up with all of our guests is, Scott, what is your definition of health?
The definition of health to me is, one, just move, moving and using your body. But not just using it on one side, using it on both sides.
Yeah.
If you use your left side, use your right side. Just acknowledge that our body is it's an organism that we need symmetrical motion, or at least using both sides, because the more we're aware of where our body can move bilaterally, and we'll be more aware of which side isn't moving well. So then you can come to us and actually we can get you more asymmetrical.
There we go. I love it. Well, man, yeah, thank you so much for joining us, man. It was truly a pleasure talking with you about this. I know that you and I have had a number of conversations about it, but just going in deeper with things today was a real joy. So thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing it with us, and thank you for your expertise.
Not a problem, guys. Thanks for the time, and stay busy during this time and
exactly.
Which I have no doubt you're going to find a way to stay busy.
For sure. Well, appreciate you, man. Thank you very much. We'll definitely talk soon, all right?
All right, buddy. Take care.
So if you're a golfer or if you know golfers, make sure to share this episode with them, because it was jam-packed with information that they may not be used to hearing in terms of the roles of the muscular system in helping them make sure that they can play and perform their best. And while you're online, if you wouldn't mind, head on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. It helps people find us when they search for podcasts on exercise and when they search for podcasts on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us a rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week.